Hey yo, welcome to Beyond the Mat, where it's all about the things and stuff. It's like this and like that, sitting in a lotus seat. We breathe deep from our heads to our feet till we feel inner heat. A little bit of rhythm for your soul, stretching out your minds from your head to your toes. We in our flow state, we don't know no hate. We into feeling great though, so we correlate. Coil snake gonna rise, sunshine. We take our time to appreciate divine grace. It takes place in a pace in them inner states. From a country road down to the interstate, we contemplate this. We here to make this. We here to break this. But we never fake this. We never hate kids. We in the love vibe. Me and my whole tribe, we gonna try to be fly with the sunshine. Hello, all you beyonders out there, doing all your beyonding duties. It is me, Dr. J, back with another installment of your favorite podcast, where we talk about all the things that happen beyond our yoga mats. The first thing I want to talk about is sponsorships. If you, the listener, would like to sponsor my show, the podcast, that is, to help me continue to make these awesome episodes with even more awesome guests, then I need to start making a little moolah, a little coinage, a little cha-chang lang dang diddly doo doo diddly doo. Because this Facebook, Skype, chat stuff, I mean, let's be honest, it sounds like we're talking in a tunnel made for robots being funneled deep beneath the ocean. So I need some monthly money for a real phone plan so I can do real old school voice over a telephone call to my guests. And right now, and actually ever since somewhere like 2014 was the last time I ever had a real phone plan hooked up. So come on folks, let's get some donations happening. Let's get you over to patreon.com/beyondthemat. And you can donate anywhere from $1 to I think $10 per month, or it can be a one-time donation. Anyways, it's all on that website, patreon.com/beyondthemat. And y'all can do whatever you want at that point. I'm just grateful for any amount. It all really helps. The purpose of this podcast is simple. To sell you things, duh. I ain't gonna lie about it. I'm trying to sell some artwork that I made during the winter months, and what better way than to feature it on one of these lovely podcast kajiggers. So, if you like your brain to be tickled via the ocular functions of this meat machine we drive around in, then look no further, friends, because right here, there is a simple way that you can have your brain tickled all day long. That's right. By purchasing one of these artworks found at jcoleyoga.ca, you get to display it on your wall in a frame or in a plastic sleeve or wrapped around a spaghetti colander, whatever your artwork display tactic may be. And also, you will get a digital copy for your phone, for your phone's wallpaper, or your laptop, or a tablet, or any device really that displays digital files. You will be able to have your brain continue to be tickled as the image follows you around everywhere you go all day long. So when you see someone out in public in a fit of laughter as they gaze longingly at their mobile screen, just know this: they're probably insane. And if they aren't insane, they're definitely looking at one of my pieces of artwork and allowing its soft, feathery tentacles to reach in through their retinas deep inside the central nerve cortex and coochie coochie coo. Now, I don't want this intro to ramble on too much longer because the guest is amazing today, folks. And I just gotta tell you one more thing, one more idea that's floating around. I'm thinking about doing a Patreon raffle where you can win. That's right, you can win one of my lovely brain-tickling pieces of art. For every $1 you donate, your name goes into a basket Once the pot has reached a certain threshold, a winner will be drawn. The winner gets to choose, that's right, you get to pick which piece of your favorite artwork from the collection will be yours to keep forever ever. Forever ever? Forever ever. More details to come on this as it progresses. It's still just an idea. Ladies and gentle freaks, today's guest. This could possibly be a first in my many years of podcasting, where the guest has had more to say than I did, and I mean that in the best way possible. This lady is on point. We are chatting today about the music business, music industry, all things music related. And while I have interviewed hundreds of artists on my shows in the past, this one is different, as this lady is not like a stage persona. She doesn't have that stage ego, alter ego going on. She's not trying to make a big name for herself as an entertainer or become this big popular brand in the minds of teenagers. No, she is a composer. So she knows what music sounds like before it's even been played or ever been heard by anyone. She has been composing what she calls original brand music for the last 28 years. You can find her online at facebook.com/Coy Compositions. That's CoyCompositions. And she's on all the other socials under the same name, Coy Compositions. So YouTube, SoundCloud, Twitter, Instagram. Make some noise, bang some pots and pans together, toss them down a set of stairs, do something loud right now for this wealth of knowledge embodied into a super fun, energetic human being, the lovely lady, Karina Pardus. Welcome to Beyond the Mat podcast. Thanks for being here. And we just chatted a little bit before the show started, and you are into composing, and you had said composing original brand music for things like YouTube casters and things like that. So maybe you want to elaborate how you got into composing and what it is specifically that you compose, like piano, cellos, violins, the whole concert. Like what's happening? What's happening?
Sure. So I have been doing music stuff my whole life, basically. I've been playing the piano for 28 years, about. I play multiple other instruments. I've been composing for 10 years now, but I only just started a business out of it. So the business is fairly new. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my composing business, I wanted to write music for video games. That's like what I really love doing, but it was really hard to find people who were in a position to do that for right away. And as I was seeking for these people that I could write music for their video games, I kept hearing so many other people be like, well, I need music for my podcast intro, outro. Oh, well, I need music for my brand audio, for my business. Oh, I need music for my YouTube videos. And I was like, hey, people really need this, and that sounds like fun too. Yeah. And so I just started talking to them more, and so now I'm able to do a bit of all of that, which is really exciting for me because I love doing all of that.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so I will almost always start with the piano just because that's what I am most comfortable with.
Right.
And I feel like it's easy to listen to piano and say, oh, well, that could be a cello, or that could be a guitar, that could be a flute there. But if I give you a cello or a flute or a guitar, it's really hard to picture it as being something else. So if you don't like how it sounds, you're automatically going to say that doesn't work. Whereas with the piano, you could say, well, what could this become next?
Right.
And so it's a lot easier to brainstorm and to build off of that for you when I do that. But I can compose in any instrumentation combinations. Full orchestra pieces are really time consuming because that is usually over 250 instruments that you are composing for. So it can get bigger than that too, but that's like a basic full orchestra setup is 250 instruments. Wow. So that gets pretty technical. But and most brand audio and podcast and YouTube music stuff doesn't need to be that intricate. Right. It can be more of a small ensemble thing. But I don't know, I'm happy to explore all avenues of music creation. That's what's fun about it.
Cool. Yeah, I can imagine the orchestra would be like a little bit nuts because I do sound engineering myself, and I can't imagine trying to record that many people all at once. But because like you want to get like a direct line to get a quality recording through everybody. So it's like that would just be a nightmare. So many.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of coordination.
Yeah.
And a lot more money because if you want live recording, which is the best quality out there, right, is live recordings, you need to pay the people for their time, as they deserve. And there are some great groups of people that do that kind of thing, but it is a difficult scenario. It takes a lot of planning. But for people who don't have the budget to pay for you to get a live recording of their music, you can use virtual instruments, which don't sound like there's good virtual instruments out there. It's not going to be the same quality, but you can mimic it pretty okay.
Yeah, it's getting really close. I've noticed. I remember the MIDI starting out back in the day. Bing bong bong bing bing boom bong, and they're like, that's a guitar. Then they switch it over.
Yeah.
Now it's a trombone. Boom 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 boom. It was like always these really silly, like going back to like Nintendo 1, like the first Mario. Bing dong ding ding ding, stuff like that.
Flat and tingy and twangy and gross sounding. Yeah. But now you can buy virtual instruments that are done through live sampling where they, this company or whatever, like East West, right? They're a music sampling company where they go and they record people playing these instruments live and then just create each note into a digital signal, into a digital MIDI signal, so that I can then take that live sound that they did and apply it anywhere in my song and have it sound better than MIDI. Not as good as in real life recording for my purposes, but it still is from an original real sound. So it's really cool. Like, technology is just creating amazing things for this process for anyone to be able to create whatever they can imagine.
I started writing rap songs in 1997 when I was in high school. 95 when I was in high school. And I immediately was like, okay, I can write these rap lyrics, but what am I going to like rap them over? And at the first of like a song, there's like a little loop of a beat, like a 4-bar or an 8-bar. And I would grab those, and I had 2 tape decks set up side by side, and I would play, and I was manually looping pause, play, record, rewind. I was looping like that for like a full 3-minute section, and then trying to like do the rap lyrics over top of that. Just starting out, never having mastered even just how to write lyrics properly on the page, and here I am trying to like put that over a loop that was made so shoddily with 2 tape decks. And I know the listeners out there are like, what's a tape deck? Like, well, kids, back in the day, we used to have these like metallic tapes rolled up on little spindles. And,
picture like a tape version of a DJ table, kind of.
Yeah, but
it's kind of like that. Kind of is what it used to be, but now there's just so many more options. And for people who don't have experience or don't have, huge recording studio capabilities, like I write all of my music in my home. I'm in a 3-bedroom apartment, and I just have a table in my kitchen with all my stuff, and I'd like to expand from there, but what I do now is not only passable, but is very good quality, and so you can get that good quality now with not as much equipment that you needed way back when, and you can just buy the software and put it in and then copy paste. It's pretty amazing.
I use Cubase for doing my editing and all that, and making instrumentals and all that, and putting things together. It's a great little workhorse. and it's got
Yeah.
I get this plugin called Isotope that does mastering, and it is like gold. It's a golden package, and I fear ever losing it. Like I fear having a system crash. I don't know where I got it or how I got it or who gave it to me or whatever, where it came from. But I don't have the original install file. It's just installed on my Cubase now, and I'm like, okay, baby, hang in there, and and
Keep working for me.
keep
There's
going.
a lot of great stuff. The DAW, I use DAW for listeners. Cubase is a DAW, and it's a digital audio workstation. So the DAW that I use is Reaper,
Oh yeah.
which I mean, all of them are good, right? You have things like Logic Pro and Pro Tools and things like that that are considered industry standard or whatever, and industry standard is in quotation marks because all of them do the same thing. Some are more used than others, but all of them are capable of the same outcome.
Yeah.
And that's what you put your instruments in, how you edit all your sound, it's how you manipulate everything so that it actually sounds good.
Hey, I remember, I mean, we did probably 4 or 5 albums before we even found out what a compressor was. So we were recording on like a cheap Radio Shack. I guess y'all don't have Radio Shack, but it's like the Source. I don't know if you have the Source either. It's like a store you could go and buy electronics, basically. And it was the cheapest, like $14 dynamic mic, not even like a nice Shure stage mic. It was just a cheap one. And we probably did 4 or 5 albums like that. And then I remember a guy was like, well, yo, you're gonna put compression on the vocals, right? I looked at him, I was like, what's compression? He's
What
like,
does that mean?
man, what are you doing? And then he's the one who he got me onto Cubase back when it was just Cubase 1, the first Cubase back in the day.
Wow, yeah.
And then started showing me compressors and the EQs and all the magic you could do with an EQ. I mean, before that, an EQ was something on your car stereo that you would mess with to make it sound real cool while you're driving around. But I never went in and messed with the EQ of anything. So we were dealing with like all these raw vocals, raw, hot mics. Like, it was a nightmare. But I mean,
you need the equalizer
Yeah.
so that. Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. It can get really intense and overwhelming, especially if you're just starting out. There's still a lot that I don't know, still a lot that I'm learning, but it's really fun to see how many different facets of when you say, I'm a composer, that can mean so many different things. And not just within the music itself, but there's sound effect creation, which I am not very good at right now, but I'm trying to learn more of that because it's so fascinating how you can take one tiny little sound bite and just change it and manipulate it to be something completely different that can be used in so many different ways.
Yeah. I love I'd like to figure out like that like dubsteppy, glitchy kind of doing stuff like that. That's probably that's my next evolution of figuring out weird computer things. And I don't know, I like weird stuff. I like experimental stuff, but I like experimental music that actually sounds good. I mean, sometimes someone's like, listen to my experimental album, and literally sounds like they threw a box of pots and pans down the stairs. And you're like, yeah, okay, good job. But then sometimes you hear like experimental stuff that's just like mind-blowing. You're like, oh wow, I never would have thought to use a toaster like that.
Right, yeah. Music means different things to lots of different people. I've had to learn this because there are some people that are like, this is the best music, and I listen to it and I'm like, I don't even think that is music, but it's music to them, which is always an important thing to remember, especially when I'm writing music for my clients, that the music I'm writing for them is not even just for them, it's for their audience.
Yeah.
And it needs to be something that will speak to that group of people. But experimenting is part of the art, man. It's like so much fun. I saw this thing the other day. You know the Star Wars blaster sound, the pew, or whatever.
The pew pew.
You can create that sound with a slinky. If you have a metal slinky.
Oh, wow.
And you put like a paper styrofoam cup in the top of it or whatever to be like the sound projector portion, and then you drop the bottom of it to hit the floor, and then the vibration will travel up the slinky and out the cup, and it sounds like that, and it's so cool.
Oh, wow.
So
I would have thought it was like an elastic, like a something that they kind of maybe pitched it up a little bit.
Yeah, it was the video I saw, the guy did it on a hardwood floor, which sounded all right, but then he went out to a frozen lake and he did it on the ice, and it was the most magical Star Wars blaster sound I've ever heard. Like, it was so
because
cool.
it would echo through the ice, like over the lake, everywhere. Like, that would be amazing. I noticed I've been out on lots of ice myself, skating, being a frozen Canadian up here.
Right?
And, I've always noticed that the sound out on the ice, out on the pond or out on a lake, it really travels. If you would drop something on the ice, it would make like a clack, and it would like clack, 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 clack. You'd hear it go.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
The other thing that's interesting about music is people who are like kind of like tone deaf. Like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like, I don't know, listening to my dad sing along with songs, and he doesn't hit any of the notes. And then I'm like, that makes me wonder though, I'm like, what, if that's what you think they sound like, then what are you actually hearing? Like, are our ears that differently tuned that he actually hears things out of tune, and that's why he's recreating it out of tune? So that's kind of a possibility.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you get into the psychology of sound and how our brain functions within that psychology. Because, so, disclaimer, I am not a psychologist. I am not an expert on brain psychosis or how the brain works, but it fascinates me, and I read tons of stuff about it, and I love learning about the brain. And so when you have two completely different sides of the spectrum, and then everything in between, where you have perfect pitch, where you can hear the frequency of a note and you know exactly which frequency it is. You know, that's A440. That is this note, and I know it because that is, you know, because the vibrations align in such a way in your brain that it matches the frequency in your ears. And so then you have the opposite side of that, where there is tone deafness, which is not just not knowing how to sing, because a lot of people say, oh, I'm tone deaf, but that's just because they haven't been trained how to sing. And so there's not actually a discrepancy in what they hear, it's just they have not been taught how to match their voice to what their ear is registering.
Right.
So that's not true tone deafness. True tone deafness is when the vibrations that they are registering in their ear are not, they are not digested properly in the brain, and so then they are not hearing the actual vibration of the sound in its proper waveform.
Right.
And so then you have everything in between that. There's relative perfect pitch, which I have, where if you play a note and ask me what note it is, I will be probably within a half step or two of that note. But I can't sing a note straight off the bat and know that it's that note, because that's perfect pitch.
Yeah.
But if I hear it, then I can know what it is. So it's not, if that makes sense, the difference. And so when you have how our brains work with sound, I mean, everybody's body is different. You know, different parts of your body are going to break down in different ways than each other. You know, some people need knee replacements later in life, while other people's knees are perfectly fine, but they get arthritis in their fingers, or, you know, whatever. Our brains are a part of that also. Brains break down in different ways as we get older from other people's bodies, and the same with our ears, and how we are able to explore the world around us is different for each and every single individual, no matter if we're experiencing the same thing. It's such a fascinating thing to me that even in this conversation, we're having this conversation together, and yet both of us are having a completely different experience, and the people who are listening to us talk are experiencing it differently than we are experiencing it. And that's one of the most beautiful things about mortality, I think, is just how each experience is unique, which is why I think it is so important for everyone who has a talent, even if it's the same as mine or the same as anybody else's, or if you think you have no talents, you're wrong, by the way. Everyone has talents. It just might not be a physical thing like music or sports or whatever, but whatever thing you excel at, the world needs you to do it because your experience is so unique to everyone else's. And that goes along with how our brains process things, because if I process my music one way and I create it that way, the people who are listening to it are going to process it a different way than how I processed it when I created it.
Right.
And so these things that we do touch people's lives in such an intimate manner that we can't even conceive at the point of creation. Right? And so when you're thinking about that, it's just such an interesting phenomenon how when we are experiencing this world where, you know, or music or whatever it is, that we are experiencing it unique to us.
Right. Because, like, I mean, you could be out on a boat drinking some margaritas and listening to a song, and you're going to experience it a certain way, or music or podcast or whatever. And then someone could be in a fight, breaking up with their girlfriend, and that song could be playing, you know, and it's going to affect them differently. And it's also going to kind of like burn some weird impression into your brain too. That's another thing that happens, that if you're doing something fun and exciting and you hear a song, you know, you'll always look back fondly on that song. And then when, you know, you're going through a heartbreak or something and there's a song playing, you're always going to attach those feelings and emotions with that song, or those feelings you had.
That's another really cool thing. So with music helps the brain define the emotions you are feeling faster than any other medium.
Yeah.
Visual or verbal or physical touch, right? Taste, smell, any of the senses. Even our ears, when we hear people talking, or when we are reading something, our emotions are not immediately established. But when we listen to music, I think science says it takes 3 seconds of listening to music for your brain to know, understand, and relate back to you the emotion that you are feeling. And then that emotion is hardwired into your brain with those sounds. Like, it is the coolest thing. So that's why with my business, with audio branding, when I write original music for brands, that's what it's all about. It's about establishing that emotional connection right from the beginning of that person's exposure to that brand, because it will happen faster through music than with anything else. And so
there's a bit of like a loop around too when you look at like when McDonald's started that thing, ba-da-ba-ba-ba. So like you've gone into a McDonald's, you've experienced it, you know you love it, you know you love the colors, you know everything that all the marketing and advertising techniques that are attracting you in there, those are all at play. And now let's throw in some music on top of that. So every time that commercial comes on, they don't even have to play anything. They just got to go ba-da-ba-ba-ba, and immediately you're like, well, geez, I'm hungry. I kind of want to eat something.
It's so true. And that happens with a lot of other things too. Like one of my other favorite examples is like, man, get me some popcorn. I want to see this movie. I am so excited right now. I'm anxious, excited. I'm ready. You know, 20th Century Fox. Let's go. Yep. It's something that our brains remember so easily. And I don't know what it is about music that creates more permanent grooves in our brain at an easier rate than anything else, but it is something that I absolutely love about music. It's just such a fun thing, you know. When you ask people like, oh, what's your song with you and your loved one, or where were you when you first heard
such and
I
such.
don't know, random band song for the first time, and people remember.
Well, yeah. I mean, I find that a lot of the stuff that really like hit me in my soul was more in my teen years. And I found that, yeah, there's a lot of that like old stuff back from high school years and right before and right after within that area that are really, I can think back. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember the first time listening to a certain hip hop artist or whatever it was. And but now, like later in life, I hear so much new music that I'm just like, I don't know. Where were you when you first heard Bruno Mars? I'm like, probably on YouTube. Like, I don't know.
Right. Well, I think there's
guy is.
something about when we're teenagers, because our brain functions are changing so rapidly, and the impression that music has already on us, both as children, adolescents, and adults, it's ever present, right? That impression that music makes. But because of the way that our brain function is changing when we are adolescents, I think just really deepens that experience. And so you're so right though, because as an adult, I still listen to music and I still love listening to it, but there's just something about going back to my high school music that I'm like, oh man, I love this song, and you just start crying, or you remember all the words even though you haven't heard it in like 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
And all of that doesn't exist as much as an adult, but can be created, just it takes more work.
Yeah.
Listening to that music more as an adult.
So this is where a really good DJ who could play to any crowd, but mostly a really good DJ will find who's going out right now. What is the age of majority? Like, what's the average age that are going out to shows? Like, maybe not even the DJ shows, just shows in general. Like, what's the age of majority? Find that age and then go back to that time when they were being influenced in their teen years and find those hit songs that were popping out into their brains and then play those at the local whatever venue on the weekend or whatever it is. That's like what the key of a really good DJ. They're able to do that and look demographically.
Yeah. Everyone will just go crazy, be like, yes, this song, even though it's so old now, but don't remind me how old it is because this is my song.
That was my jam back in Nevermind.
Right. Yeah, it's always so funny, like when I watch my kids with music, it's really funny the music that they choose that they like and the music that they choose that they don't like. And I'm like, come on, I love this song. Why don't you love this song? And my 5-year-old, who is such an adult, just looks at me. She goes, Mom, it's a lame song. I'm like, stop it. No, it's not. But everyone has their own preferences. But those influences still make an impression, whether, it can be an impression of I don't like this.
Yeah.
Or an impression that you love it, right? It goes both ways. Because there are definitely songs that I hear from way back when that I'm like, oh man, this song was terrible and it's still terrible.
It didn't get any better over time. It's not like wine. It's not aged for flavor. Oh my. That would be funny. That would be funny if there was some kind of music that got better with time. Like those crummy sitcoms that you watch sometimes, like Big Bang Theory and that kind of stuff. Like, I couldn't stand that kind of stuff. I can't stand laugh tracks to begin with. Someone telling me when to laugh. But I remember someone was like, "Come on, man, just watch. You just need to watch like 3 episodes to get the characters down, and then it grows on you." So I'm like, I gotta suffer through horrible writing and horrible jokes to learn their character to be able to understand the horrible jokes. Like, all right. And it's funny that like that can come through like television, but that doesn't happen with music. If it sucks, it sucks. If it's good, it's good.
Well, and I think part of that is because with human interaction, which it's not real human interaction when you're watching a TV show, but you are still putting yourself in an environment where you are experiencing pseudo-human interaction, and you're be able to relate to that person or not relate to that person. But human interaction is all about growth and all about change, where you can love someone and then over time you develop a hatred for them depending on their choices and your interactions with them, and vice versa, where you hate someone or maybe you're just indifferent towards them, but the more you interact with them, the more you learn to love them, right? That happens between humans, but when it comes to music, like I said, after 3 seconds, your brain has decided the emotion you feel with that music, and that is there, right? There's no development when it comes to musical emotions as much as there is between human to human interactions.
Right. I wonder if there's specific tones and notes that key up different emotions in people. Like, I wonder if they know, if there's patterns that have been figured out that, you know, if we go like this and do this chord progression, it's going to create a feeling of empathy within people. Like, I wonder if they get that technical into figuring out.
Oh yeah, there's so many studies about stuff like that. Mostly, this is talking Western music culture.
Right.
Right? I mean, and it's funny because even in Western music, when we hear other ethnic musics, we can relate to them, and but we relate back to them as if it were Western music, even though they have completely different music theories and different scales that they're based off of and different tonalities and things like that. But in Western music, they have had so many studies about what emotions are triggered by what kinds of chord progressions. You know, which is why when you ask someone, like, who has a very basic understanding of music, and not a very in-depth understanding of music, but very, very basic, it's like, what's the difference between a major scale and a minor scale? Well, one sounds happy and one sounds sad. You know, that is because of the emotions that they relate to between major and minor. Happy music, sad music, right? And it gets there's so much more depth and intricacy available there, but that is like the basic tip of the iceberg kind of thing, where major music can also have lots of other emotions tagged onto it, but it just depends on the way that the chords are presented to the listener.
Right. More about how it's presented. Jeez.
Yeah, well,
I've been doing music for like 25 years, and I still have no idea what a note is. I couldn't tell you a note from a different note, and I don't know if I just don't have those kind of ears to recognize it or whatever. But I mean, I know when something is out of tune and something's off key. I definitely know that. But if you were to play like a C note on a piano, I'd be like, I don't know, I have no idea.
Right. Yeah, and that's normal. That is 80% of the human population.
Yeah. But I mean,
right? So that's fine.
You would think, though, after 25 years of working in music, I might have figured out one or two notes, but I just still haven't. That's kind of like the funny thing. And it's like, you know, this has been like my job and ways that I've made a living through music. So you'd think I would have picked up a chord or two here and there, but no.
Well, it's really funny because with colleagues that I've met and things, I was shocked to find out how many of them can't even read music.
No.
They're writing music, they are composing music for a living.
Yeah.
And they can't read a single note on a page of music. I was like, what? What do you mean you can't read music? Because they wanted advice, like, hey, can you listen to this and let me know if this is something that could actually be played by a human person, is basically what they were asking me. Like, you've played piano for 20 plus years, so listen to this piano track and tell me if I need to make changes for an actual human person instead of a computer to be able to play this in real life. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Could you send me the sheet music with it too, so that I could just look at it and see how your notation is? And they're like, I don't have notation for it. Like, there's no way. I can't read music. I can't write music like that on a staff. I was like, well, then how's a human person going to be able to play it in the first place? You know, and that's why they have people whose careers is to take the sound bites that someone has and transcribe them onto paper.
Oh, into
there are people who,
like
there's people who do that for a living too.
Cool.
But abilities within just this one scope of art that, so one of them even told me, they were like, Karina, I'm not getting paid to write notes on a page for my client. I'm getting paid to make something sound good. And I'm good at creating the sounds that sound good. I'm like, you're not wrong. That is definitely what you're doing. Yeah. But coming from a classical background, it was just so mind-boggling to me. But it makes sense. Like, you don't need to read music in order to write music. You need to be able to read music in order to play music in certain functions. There are even people who don't need to do that, right? I mean, if you have a jazz musician, a lot of jazz musicians don't read music. They just know the chord progressions and they know theory like crazy, and they can just vamp on that thing forever, and it's amazing to me. And everyone has different gifts. Like, I am a very good sight reader. You put any sheet of piano music in front of me, and I can probably play it by looking at it for the first time.
Wow.
In a decent way. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be pretty darn close, right? But then you have, like, one of my best friends who, he can kind of read music, but if he's reading music, it takes him forever to play the song. But he listens to one thing on YouTube, and he can play it perfectly on the piano right after one listen, right? Oh, wow. And I don't have that gift, right? So even within the scope of music, you have all of these different talents and unique traits that allow everyone to bring something to the table to enhance the art, right, and to enhance the humanity of it all, the human experience. And training is different for everyone. Even like, you said you've been doing music for 25 years?
Oh yeah.
I've been doing music for around that amount of time also, and it's like, but our training is completely different from each other. Oh, yeah. Our experience is different from each other. I graduated college with a piano performance degree, and so that required me to do ear training and oral skills and theory and all this crazy stuff, and I had to know when they would play two notes on a piano, I had to know the quality of that interval, if it was major or minor, and how far apart it was by listening to it twice. That's how many times they'd play it for it. They'd like, just play the notes, okay, write it down on the paper, we're moving on to the next one, play these notes, Wow. You had to get good at that or you failed the class.
That's a challenge right there by itself. Like, that's
that's
not only a skill, that's like, how do you even, like, what if you're one of those people who hears differently? I guess you probably wouldn't want to get into what you're doing if you didn't really hear properly.
I mean, and there were people who struggled with it more than others, for sure. I mean, I actually tutored my classmates because people were struggling, and for me it was like so easy. Like, how do you not get this? But you have to realize that people also learn differently, and a teacher in front of a classroom can only teach it so many ways within the amount of time that they're given. And so to be able to work one-on-one with the person is always a magical opportunity, because you're able to figure out what helps this person learn. Where is their brain functioning higher than in other areas? Is it when you listen to something? Is it when they are doing it? Is it, through me talking to you? Is it through seeing the differences? And so one of my friends is a very visual person, and so we actually got one of those tuner machines that shows the frequency of the note that you're playing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he would look at that behind the piano while I would play the piano notes for him and be like, okay, here's this note and here's its interval. And by looking at the different frequencies, the hertz on the machine, he could figure out what the interval was. And so then just through repeated practice of that, he was able to then hear it better when we were in the test during class. It's just, everybody's brain works differently. It's so fascinating. It's so cool. And but even then, there were some people who just couldn't get that, and that's fine. It doesn't mean that they won't ever be successful in music. It means that they weren't successful in that one portion of that one class, right?
So they're not going to fail the whole thing because of that one one little
Right.
pickup.
No, there's so many different aspects to music besides just knowing intervals. There's, and it depends on what you want to do with music too. Like I said, I had a classical background. I was a piano performance major, so everything was classically based, where in the classical music world, these are the rules of what you need to know. And I'm learning that it doesn't really matter half of those things, even within the classical music world. It's just all based on tradition. As a classical pianist, you need to wear black on stage because that's what you do. Well, Lang Lang is proving us wrong because he wore a bright green suit on stage in France, which was amazing because people just don't do that. Like, those boundaries aren't pushed as much in the classical realm as they are, like, you have hip-hop, you have jazz, you have rap, you have R&B, you have all of these other amazing genres of music that are pushing boundaries, and classical music has never really done that as much because it's based on the traditions of the Baroque music period.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, like everybody's wearing a suit.
Exceptions when you get into the romantic, with a few more exceptions when you get into, these other eras of classical music, but it's still all within the underlying umbrella of this is classical music and it has to be prim and proper. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's just how people are taught that it needs to be. And so when you're looking at a career in music, for anyone, if ever you want to do anything in music, even if you don't want to make money off of it, you need to figure out exactly what it is you want to do with it, and then find the background training that will best benefit that, because there's so many different ways to do it. And learning different ways that maybe won't be the best background for your ultimate end goal is not a bad thing, because it's all music and it all relates to each other, and knowing classical music and then writing jazz music is a really fun thing for me, right? I love having all of these interweaving possibilities with my knowledge, and I'm trying to learn other knowledges, other ways of doing things that are not what is most comfortable for me, because that's where things can get interesting. But knowing that there's more than one way to do it in music, there's always more than one way. There are so many different ways to do it.
Can I get you to hold for just a quick sec? I got someone at the door. Just a sec. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
And we're back. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Had to deal with a little something there. Okay. So if you've learned all of the different ways and methods, I think at least having that as a foundation and a knowledge of how music is made, how it's put together, like what the technical ways of, like I said about like how I didn't know even what a compressor was. Things like that. Once you know, like once you've gone to school, done it the proper way, you know all these things, and then you can start looking at the genre that you want to apply it to after. But having that foundation means that you could literally go into any genre and know how to put it all together.
Right. And you might be limited without that foundation, but even if you don't have to know everything before you start creating. You don't.
No.
Right. There's just so much to learn. Don't ever limit the art you create because of the limited knowledge you perceive to have. Right? I mean, that's craziness. Why would you not make art just because you don't know enough? If you think about all of the greatest artists that have ever lived, they were constantly learning while they created. That's what made them great, is their ability to create and then learn as they created more. That's why you have their first piece of art, whatever medium it is so different to their last one.
Right. Because
that's what progression entails, is continuing as you learn. And so learning those foundations is so helpful. It's been very helpful to me. But not having a college education in music is fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. If you can't get a college education in music, that doesn't mean that you should never make music. It just means that you will have to learn it in different ways. And there are so many resources to do that now. Udemy, PragerU, edx.org, Coursera, YouTube videos, all of these places can help teach you that foundation outside of a formal education.
Yeah.
And, private teachers also should be noted, because I think having a private teacher, if you're able to, is always one of the best resources to have, especially if you're able to find a teacher who is able to cater to your design. If they are able to teach you based on what you actually want to know, instead of teaching their agenda only, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because you want them, it'd be cool if you're like, I don't know, if you're producing country music and you need to learn from someone, it'd probably be a little better if you're not learning from a rock and roll guy or a hip hop producer on how to produce music. Because things are, in that kind of sense, yeah, things are done a little differently, because, I don't know, just the way that the music comes in for like a rap song, you kind of have your whole instrumental as one solid wave file most of the times, what you get. And then you bring that into a studio, and then you lay your vocals down over top of that, and then someone else is going to take it off and mix it somewhere, and someone else is going to take it and master it somewhere. It's just so weird that there's so many different levels of, there's so many branches, I guess, to this music industry tree, this industry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and I also teach piano lessons. I've taught piano lessons for 15 years. And I've taught people from the ages of 4 to the ages of 42, I think, has been my oldest student to date.
Ooh.
But, so if you're out there thinking, man, I wish I learned piano, or I wish I had stuck with it when I was a kid so that I could still do it, don't give up on that dream. Seriously. You can still learn as an adult. I've seen it happen. I've taught adults, and they're actually my favorite to teach. I actually don't teach little kids anymore, not because they're not fun. I love teaching kids, but I have so much more enjoyment as a musician when I'm able to talk more in depth with adults and adolescents about music, instead of just, okay, here's the C note, here's how you play an F sharp, or whatever the basic stuff is. I like getting more into the depths of musicianship, and you're able to do that better with adults than not. My mom actually started taking piano lessons. She put me and all 4 of my sisters through piano lessons, and then when most of us were moved out of the house, and it was just my youngest sister taking piano lessons at the time, she was like, man, I feel like I don't have as much to do anymore. And then she was like, wait a minute, I can take piano lessons now. And so she was 43 when she started taking piano lessons, and now she is playing music that would have been acceptable for me to play at my senior recital in college, right? I mean, she's playing very advanced curriculum. But, and, with what she wanted to do, it's amazing. So never give up on that dream. But in teaching piano lessons for 15 years, there have been people who have wanted to just learn classical repertoire. There have been people who have wanted to just learn how to read music good enough in order to play the hymns at their church, in order to use it just as a talent to use for their church service. There have been people who have wanted to be able to learn in order to play pop songs and impress girls at school. I seriously had a teenage student who told me that that's what he wanted to do. He's like, I just want to learn these few songs so that when I go to school I can play them and the girls will think I'm cool. I was like, okay. We have a foundation to build before that happens, but I promise you, with your dedication, they will think you are cool.
Yeah.
It was pretty hilarious. And he turned into a great student. It was really fun.
Oh, cool.
But no matter what your goals are, you can find a teacher who's able to cater to that, and that is always I think that is one of the best ways to go. But whatever is available to you, there are so many avenues through which you can gain the knowledge you need in order to get to where you want to be in the creation of your art. But above all, the most important way to do that is by creating the art. because there's a quote I read, and the gist of it is that you can't wait for perfect in whatever it is that you're creating, because it's only by stopping at a point, like wherever you are in the editing process of it, or just tweaking it here and there, wherever you're at, there has to be a point where you stop and let it go, which means put it out there for other people to hear, or put it, even if it's just a mentor or a colleague or a family member or whatever, sharing that and then getting feedback and making sure that you are also listening and giving yourself feedback, because that is how you progress.
Right. Okay, but this is where I run into trouble, because like, let's say I write, I'll make a new beat, I make a new rap beat, and I'll write lyrics to it, and I'll record it, and I'll send it to like 3 or 4 of my close trusted friends. Yo, check this out. It's a new song I just made. That gives me that endorphin rush. It's like the likes on Facebook. You get that like high of like, yeah, and everybody's like, oh man, this is really good. Oh, this is really, really awesome. I don't ever get like actual, like real feedback. No one's ever like, you mispronounced this word wrong, or your note was off here. No one ever says anything like that. It's always just this rush of good, like, yeah, good job. And then I'm like, yeah, that's it. And then I take that song and I put it away, and I don't ever work on it again, because I got everything I ever wanted out of it. I got the high from it. So I try not to show anybody anything until it's all done. But this goes back to like what you were saying earlier about, shoot, I just lost my train of thought. Oh my. It happens. So yeah, in the process of creating, I would normally create something, listen to it as much as I can myself until I'm sick of it, and just put it away, put it in a folder, don't show anyone until like the album is done, or the video that accompanies it is done, or whatever. And maybe that's just me though, because like I'm a bit of a weirdo.
The problem then becomes, how do you define done? Because I know people who have been working on an album or a song or whatever it is for years because it's not done yet. Oh, how's that going? Oh, it's going great, but it's not done yet. And there has to come a point where you say, what is done? Define when it will be done. Because so I have a plaque in my house that says, done is better than perfect, because perfect doesn't grow. Because it's true.
Right. And I remember what I remember what I was going to say. It's so like you were saying earlier about how like you're learning at the same time that you're creating. So you're like learning while in progress. And you literally like, you don't know when it's actually done. But let's say like with me, I learned about, for example, the compression. I didn't go back and open up all my old songs I ever did and try and put compression on everything. Like you just kind of like chalk it up to it is what it is and move on and take your new knowledge and apply it to what's happening now and in the future.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so being able to, it's really interesting, because there will be times when I'm like, oh, this song is so awesome. I am so awesome. And then you go back and you play it later. Sometimes it's the next day that you play it, and you're like, oh man, this sucks.
What was I thinking?
I'm so bad at this. Sometimes it's weeks later, sometimes it's months, sometimes it's the next day. You're just like, why did I think this was good? But that's because there are two, if you're looking at a graph, there's 2 lines of growth in an artist, and they are constantly fluctuating apart from one another. And the first line is your actual ability, your actual artistic ability, your ability to make music or art or whatever it is that you're doing. Any skill that you're learning, you can apply this to, but let's apply it to music, because that's what we've been talking about. So your ability to make music is one growth chart, right? And it is constantly going up and down in an incline, right? It's like hills and valleys, but each time the hill gets bigger and the valley doesn't go as low, right?
Right.
But then inverse to that growth, you have the other line, which is your perception of your ability. So there will be times when the perception that you have of your ability is lower than your ability to make art. So that's when you think you're so great because you don't know how to discern all of your mistakes yet.
Right.
You know, you have knowledge that you have not gained to match your actual ability to create art. So you are fantastic. You are the best person at making art ever. But then your perception will get better as your art plateaus because you're learning more as you make art on that level, because you cannot improve in it without learning how to improve, if that makes sense. And so your perception of your ability will be above your ability to make art at some point, which is when your art hasn't gotten worse, just your ability to recognize your mistakes and recognize your weaknesses and your incapabilities and things like that, you know, the equipment that you don't have or whatever, hasn't changed, just your ability to recognize that has, and that's gotten better. So that's when you think that you suck as an artist, and you're like, man, why am I so terrible? And then because you are then able to recognize those mistakes and those weaknesses, then you're able to work on them, hopefully keep working through those I suck phases, because they don't last that long, I promise. As long as you keep working on it, then your art ability will grow again and will again be above your perception ability. And so your art ability and your perception ability are constantly growing at odds with each other. And so it's just it's a good thing to be aware of, because then you can grow through the I suck phases and you can learn through the I'm awesome phases, because we all go through them and they're constantly changing and fluctuating. And so one thing that has helped me is being able to define on a project when it's done. It's easy when it's for a client, because I'm not the one who says it's done. They are. Even if I think it still sucks or it should change here or there or whatever, if they say that they love it and they are in love with it and the deadline has come and they like it and they say it's done, then you just have to say they love it, it's done, even if you don't understand how they can love it yet. But that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's their music. You wrote it for them, not for you. But on my personal projects, I have to tell myself all the time, when will I say that this is done? It can't be when it's going to sound perfect, because my ability to hear that is changing constantly.
Yeah.
And other people's abilities, when I give it for feedback, their abilities to hear if it's perfect or not is very different from mine also. And maybe their ability is less than mine, and so they're going to say that it's awesome when really I think that something is bad and I wanted them to tell me how to fix it, but they don't have that ability yet, or they're just too scared to tell me. But I often, when I give my music for feedback, I will often ask for a specific thing for them to listen to, because then you can for sure get feedback on that thing instead of just, oh, hey, listen to this song and tell me what you think. That is not constructive feedback.
No.
That never yields constructive feedback, but saying, hey, I'm trying to figure something out with this drum track, like at the 1 minute mark or whatever. Can you listen to it and please give me your thoughts on how I can improve that? Or is it in balance with everything else? Or please tell me if the octave ranges between the different instruments make the harmonic sound weird, or whatever it is, right? Giving specific details for what you want gives for specific feedback. And so, but all of our abilities are different, and all of our ability to listen and perceive is different, and so they might hear it differently than me. So my being done can't be when it's perfect. It has to be at something more specific. So just sometimes it's when every track is laid down and all the EQ and compression is done, then it's done and I'm not going to tweak it anymore because I did the compression and it's good. Right? Other times it has to be, well, when it sounds good enough for this thing. But almost always I'll just give myself a deadline, say by this date it's done, because that's an easy thing to measure. At this date I'm going to be done. And so you just do as much as you can until that date, and then you say, I'm done, awesome, and then you celebrate the fact that you finished something and you can move on and continue learning on something new. Because that celebration really is key. If you say, okay, I'm done and it sucks, that's not going to be very exciting to continue trying to make more art. So don't put your art down, guys.
One of the most common One of the most common feedbacks that I hear is people say that, oh, this is overproduced. Like, you're overproducing. And I'm like, well, because I will like look at something, I'll throw in like a drum line, like a simple like break beat, like a, and then maybe all I'll have is a guitar, just a little bam, bam, bam. And you know, that's simple. And maybe for that person that's giving that feedback, that's all they like. They like just a simple drum and a simple guitar. But me, I'm like, I think that needs some more symphonies added. And I need some like weird, like trancey, like swishy noises in the back. And I need some left and right. I need to send that guitar so that the barrel is to the left, the barrel is to the right, the bing is to the middle. Like I like to, pan left and right on individual notes. I like to get in depth. But that's because I've sat for like 3 months looking at this one instrumental and trying to beef it up and make it something. So yeah, I do understand a little bit of overproduction, but like I think that's kind of just like a cop out that a lot of people go to as their criticism, like, oh, it's overproduced. Which is like, yeah, you gotta have a cutoff point. Gotta maybe say like, look, don't spend 3 months working on this 1 3-minute song that
Yeah, I get told a lot that my music is too complicated. Because I do like really complex rhythms. I love complex rhythms.
Yeah.
I like compound rhythms. I love sorry. I really I'm a pianist, but I'm also a percussionist, and so I love trying to make the piano be more percussive.
Right.
Bela Bartok is one of my heroes because he did that in amazing ways in the music that he wrote, and I love playing him. But so I get told a lot, well, that's just a little too complicated. Like, you can't hear everything that's going on. I'm like, that's fine. What you heard, what was good about it? Like, I like my song the way it is. I'm asking you how I can improve it, not how I can change it. Right? Because there is a difference between completely changing everything that you did and making it sound better.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not asking to cut. You're not asking to cut half of it out.
Right. And also realizing that for every song you create, there is a different audience for that song. Just like in business, where you have a target audience, you have your ideal client for the business that you're doing. Each song has that too, and each song has an ideal client. Can you get those flowers for Archie, please? And someone who the music is almost meant for, because they're going to like that more, right? So the people who think that my music is too complicated is not my ideal listener.
Right.
And they're not the people who I should be asking for help on this particular type of piece.
Right.
They're the people who, it's good to know what other people think, the non-ideal client people think, but you should never change your music for the people that it's not meant for, because they don't know what the people that it's meant for want. And you do.
Right.
Which is why you're the one making it.
Hopefully.
Well, that is also a learning process. Learning what other people want, what your ideal listener wants in the music, is another important learning process. And you can only learn that by talking to them.
Yeah. And that's
you can't learn it by guessing. You can't learn it by posturizing or assuming or putting what you want on them. If you want to write music for you, awesome, do it. But if you are writing it for an audience, then you need to know what that audience wants, right? If you look at any concert-going group, like you can look at, at a Billy Joel concert group,
yeah.
And you can look at a Nightwish concert group, and you can look at a Queen concert group, and you can look at Kanye West concert group, right? Each group of people that are going to these concerts want something different out of that concert. And these artists who are able to succeed because they know what their audience wants and are able to create things that are true to their own artistic abilities and desires and passions, but that also are able to speak to their audience.
Right. This is where the struggle of like hip hop music comes in, because there's funky soulful hip hop, there's bluesy hip hop, there's country hip hop, there's heavy metal rock sounding hip hop, like there's all different kinds. And when someone comes in, like for me to come in and record with me, it's like, okay, like, well, what kind of, like, rap music are you making? What kind of like, what's your style? What do you hear when you hear your songs? You got to ask. You got to do like an intake with your client basically and find out
Oh yeah.
everything about them. What are their tastes in music? Because that's another big thing. You'll ask someone like, "Oh, They're like, "Oh, I love Lenny Kravitz, but I'm a rapper, and then I'm like, okay, how can I take their influence? How can I hear the influence that they're getting from Lenny Kravitz kind of music, and how can I hear how they're trying to infuse that into the rap world?" And so that's
Right.
that's often a challenge. And I mean, that's just with recording. You're maybe not even having anything to do with the instrumental that's already been created. You might just be recording vocals, but you still have to know all that stuff, because you still have to know maybe they want some weird like effects put on their voices or something. Like, you never know.
Yeah, for sure. And knowing not just what they like, but before I ask them what they like, because people are always like, oh, I don't know, I like this and I like that, and it's always kind of wishy-washy.
Yeah.
But you ask, what do you dislike? And people are very adamant about what they do not like, and that can really help you pinpoint things better. Sorry, my kids are dumping things out behind me. Even with yourself and your own music, what do I not like about, drum tracks, or what do I not like about when guitars are being used, or whatever it is. Knowing that can help you already narrow down what the best thing is to, what avenues or possibilities there are that would be good and would be a good fit. And the other go-to question that I always ask my clients is, what emotions do you want your audience to feel when they listen to your show or to your videos or to the music that I'm making for you? In a video game, what emotions do you want them to feel during these parts of the story?
Yeah.
For a podcaster, what emotion do you want people to feel towards your show? Because the limbic brain, the limbic part of our brain, is the part of our brain that controls our emotions, and it also controls our decision making. And so our emotions, more often than not, drive our decision making more than our logic process does. And we always try to find a way to explain it. That's the logic part of our brain. Tries to explain why we're doing what we're doing. But if you ask someone why they love something, they'll give you reasons that are not the true reasons, because our vocabulary part of our brain doesn't know how to put into words the emotional part of our brain. And so knowing how we want to emotionally connect is almost more important than any of the other words that we say at any other point in the song. Even in songs with lyrics, there's always an emotion behind the words that is more important than the words being sung. And so knowing the emotion that they want will tell me more of what kind of music they want than anything else they can tell me. Other things they can tell me make the process a lot easier and a lot faster. Asking for sample tracks, send me a few things of what you like and tell me what you like about them, please.
Yeah.
But know that it's not going to be like it. I'm not going to recreate that track because I'm making something original to you, so it's different.
Yeah.
But having those guidelines is helpful. I always laugh when people, and I've been asked this before, they're like, hey, for this video game, can you write some Hans Zimmer music? I'm like, no, I can't, because I'm not Hans Zimmer. If you want Hans Zimmer music, go to Hans Zimmer. Or if you want Danny Elfman, go to Danny Elfman. I'm not going to try to write Hans Zimmer or John Williams type music, because I am not them.
Yeah, really.
And the amazing thing about them is that they did not become such huge names in the soundtrack business by trying to be like someone else.
No, they did
They
their
are
own thing.
so unique to themselves and their own art, and they don't try to say, I even watched an interview with Hans Zimmer where someone asked him, hey, would you ever try to write, would you ever want to write a Star Wars film? And Hans Zimmer just started laughing, and he was like, heck no, I would not want to do that, because A, okay, not only is that John Williams' territory, but it's his territory because that's what he's good at. He's like, I would not fit the Star Wars story, and fans would hate me, and I would hate me, and everyone would hate everything because I'm not going to try to be like John Williams.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to write my music, and that's what everyone should do, right? I should never try to be like, so my music hero is Alan Menken,
right,
who wrote the music for most of the Disney movies that you love, Beauty and the Beast, Hunchback of Notre Dame, The Little Mermaid, Tangled,
Aladdin. Please say Aladdin.
Yeah, yes, Aladdin.
Oh yeah.
Aladdin. Yeah, he wrote the music for Aladdin too. I love Alan Menken, and Howard Shore is the one who he did a lot of the lyrics for those movies before he passed away, and he and Alan Menken were partners back in the day. But he is my musical hero, and I love him. But every time, like when I first got into composing, I would try to write music like Alan Menken wrote music, and I was miserable. It's like, but I love him, and I love his music, and it inspires me so much. Why do I hate myself and my life and my music? And it's like, because I wasn't writing my music. I was trying to write his music, which is stupid, because he has years and decades of experience on me. And not just experience in writing music, but his life experiences are different than mine. So our music is going to be different, and that's okay. I can idolize him, and I can be inspired by him, and I can look to him for lots of things, but when it comes to the actual creation of art, the only person you should ever look at is yourself, and write and create your art the way that you need to do it. And that should always be the bottom line, no matter what any client says.
That should be the bottom line for everybody, not even just clients that you're working for. That should be the bottom line for everyone who is creating music at all, or any kind of art, really. It's to not try, like you just said, like try and tap into your own experiences and vibe off of that, rather than trying to be like, oh, I'm going to make the next Dr. Dre beat, or I'm going to make the next kind of, because anyone can, you know what? It's so easy to make a Dr. Dre beat. Bing, bing, boom, 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 bing, bing, boom, boom, boom. There, I just made one.
Right,
It's so easy.
Yay! But is it inspiring?
No,
because
not really.
That's
it's been
not
done
what
before.
you want to do.
No, and it's been done 1,000 times before, so it's like
right.
And I see a lot of this in the world of hip hop. There's a lot of people looking for beats to rap over. They're looking for free instrumentals. And now the big thing is that you'll go online, and if you look up free instrumentals, they'll say just that. This is a Dre style beat. This is a Kanye West kind of beat. This is a...
Yeah.
I don't even know who they all are anymore these days. This is a Jay-Z kind of beat, I guess. Like, they each have their own kind of signature sound to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so people just try and recreate that and now put that out there. But I can't believe how much copyright-free stuff is being put out right now, which is blowing my mind. I mean, that's what I used on the instrumental for this podcast, for Beyond the Mat. It's just a free sample I found on YouTube where they were like, hey, anyone who wants to use this on a podcast or in like a rap song or on a music video or whatever you want to use it for, go ahead. And I was like, dang, that sounds pretty good. But I mean, those are far and few between, I gotta say. They're usually garbage. They're usually and usually
it takes hours to find something that maybe could be good enough.
Yeah, and then if you get into the point where it's like, when I create my own instrumentals, I have all my drums on its own layer. I have the piano on its own layer. If I want to go in and cut out that one drum just for this one loop of this one bar, I can do that. But when you're getting a solid WAV file from somebody, there's no going in and pulling out little pieces here and there. You're not changing things around. So
yeah, it's taking it as it is and hoping that it might be good enough, which is, I mean, and the free stuff is nice. And it's definitely good for people who are just starting out if they have no other means to do anything else. But I have to put a plug in, because this is what I do for my business. I'm very passionate about it, is that other people are going to be able to find that free thing too. It is not unique to you, and it is not unique to what you do. And so in order to... when you think about branding whole, like if you're branding a business, you spend forever trying to find the perfect logo, the perfect font, the perfect color scheme, the perfect images, the perfect way to use your voice. The way everything is laid out is perfect to your brand. And then people will go on some stock music site for hours wasting time and be like, well, I guess this is good enough. But it doesn't actually fit their brand the way everything else does.
No,
and
it's
so
like I said
something
that
original to you is just as important as having a logo that is original to you.
Yeah, it's like I just said about having that signature sound. You're not going to get that from the free stuff.
No,
you're not going to get you're not going to get your own signature sound. You're going to get other people's signature sound, which is not always the coolest.
And so the free stuff is good, like for starting out. Like it's definitely not a bad thing, but it is definitely not even close to the best thing. And so that's why I write original music for brands, because I believe that everyone deserves to have their own thing original to them in order to spread their message the way that they want to, and in order to connect with people, because that's what music does. It connects people to you and to each other, and that's what a business is all about usually, is connecting you to your audience in some way.
Exactly.
And so that's what music does for you. And so just think about it. Anybody listening, I just ask that you give it your consideration to find something that is original to you and your brand, because your brand and you are original and you deserve it.
That's right. I think we're getting near the end here. It's about time to wrap it up. Where can everybody find you online?
Yes, I am online. I have a Facebook business page, which is facebook.com/Koi Compositions. That's COY Compositions, and that's what pretty much everything is. SoundCloud, I'm Koi Compositions. On YouTube, I'm Koi Compositions if you want to listen to some of my music. I have a Patreon where you can support me in my music making so that I can afford more equipment to make more music, if you would want to do that, where you get music monthly from me that you can keep and listen to at your pleasure, which is Patreon, patreon.com/Koi Compositions, and Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff.
Ooh, you're all over them.
I'd love to see you around more.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. This is awesome. I love talking shop talk with other musical people, and I mean, in my realm of friends and musicians, like, I'm the one who does mastering. I'm the one who figured out recording. I was the first one to figure out all this stuff. So, like, I'm the one that everybody comes to for advice and information about this. So, like, I don't have anyone to talk to about this kind of stuff, to bounce ideas off of. So it's just been me, and like you said, doing the research, trying to figure it out, learning as you go, growing as you go. So that's been my journey, and it's really cool to talk with you about all this stuff that I can't ever talk to anyone about.
Call me anytime.
We're nerding it up here in the music world. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here at Beyond the Map.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back again. We'll chat some more about.
Sure.
I have a huge list of topics that I usually go over, and we didn't do any of them today. So that's awesome, because I feel like I've been regurgitating these topics every day and every week with all my guests. So this is really cool. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Oh, you're so welcome, and thank you for having me. I hope the people who are listening gleaned something. Right?
Yeah.
Just pick one thing, and I hope it was good.
Yeah. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Beyonders. That was so freaking cool. I mean, what a lady. Doing this self-employment business from home while being a mom and all the things that go along with that. As you heard, there was a baby mixed into the podcast. That was a real baby. We did not layer that in the post-editing. That was 100% real baby noise, folks. So yeah, I had no idea walking into this, what this show would be like, what this guest was like. Karina had messaged me online asking to be a guest, and all she told me was that she was a composer and that she could chat about it. And I was like, all right, let's do it. These are what I like to call real podcasts, simply because I don't know her from before. She's not a friend or even a friend of a friend. So it really feels like a real interview, like I'm reaching out and getting like a real guest. It's not just, picking out of my friend circle kind of thing like most of the other shows are, which are also very real in their own right. But, when it's a stranger, you feel like you've done something a little different, like you've really reached out and got those feelers out there, pulling the guests in. I don't know. I feel like I've definitely learned something today. I feel like this was so much more than a podcast. This was like a lesson in the music biz. So I hope that you all gained a little something from this as I have. And until next time, peace, love, and light. Namaste, and all that other good noise. Ding!